Hi everyone, welcome to the Debrief. Today we have Dave Newman, UK Systems Professional of the Year, to Perth's most influential startup ecosystem builder, to healthcare entrepreneur disrupting aged care with PlanCare. Welcome, Dave.
Welcome, thank you very much for having me.
So Dave, you won Systems Pro of the Year in the UK in 2011, massive career highlight. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that particular award was, back then they didn't really have like a software designer of the year. So my craft is in UI, UX, software design. To today I'm being told I should get off the tools by my teams. But back then I worked for a company called Best Buy, big American company, had a JV in the UK, and we were effectively creating customer experiences in a retail environment. So we were taking technology, and it was an amazing job where we could have, how could we enhance, when someone walked into a retail environment, how can we enhance that experience? And then how can we link it with technology? So saw me winning that award because of the software that we built while in that role. And so, yeah, there was a highlight. That was just before I kind of, the family and I had made the decision to move to Australia, but it was certainly a highlight and definitely a great experience. If I look at, essentially that award was the pinnacle of all the projects that we'd done before that. And if I talk about like those projects were in today's world, they'd absolutely be accepted. But back then when we were trialing them with the customer experience, they were classed as a bit weird or a bit freaky by some of the clients. But
Yeah, right. So just out of curiosity, what did you land on in terms of a solution?
Well, there was lots of different. So we were trying to create engagement with clients. So I ran a team which was it was called the channel platform. I don't know why they called it that particular name, but like we would run different experiments on retail. So one experiment was, for example, we wanted to be having an experience where you'd gone in, you'd maybe spoken to a salesperson at that point in time, and you'd then, once you'd been in and spoken to them, maybe you'd gone and spoken about a mobile phone or the latest iPhone or something back then, you would then, after leaving that store, they'd have maybe taken your lead details and all the details, but like within about 3 minutes of you leaving that store, you'd have an email in your inbox. And that would effectively be very much like almost like a Snapchat video of the salesperson going, "Hey Tristan, thanks for coming into Best Buy. We talked about the iPhone. If you're interested, come back. I'll throw in a free case," or whatever it is like that. Now we built the software and we built that product, and we trialed it in a number of stores. It got one of the highest open rates of emails that the company had ever seen in their history. But the feedback was it was just a little bit too freaky and a bit weird having this email, like this video email from the salesperson in the inbox.
Yeah.
But in today's world, you'd absolutely accept it. You wouldn't bat an eyelid. The actual thing that stopped that project from moving forwards was the fact that when you actually worked out the cost of having that salesperson spend, it was a 30-second video clip. So essentially having them record this like video clip for 30 seconds saying, "Hey, coming in," if they got it wrong, they could re-record. It took a lot of time out of their day from actually serving the customer.
Yeah.
So that project, while it was super insightful, we learned lots about how to engage with the clients, how to increase our open rates and essentially improve the sales. Back then, the one thing that stopped it from going forwards was just purely the economics of it. Today's world, you'd replace it with AI.
Yeah.
You'd literally have this person, you'd say, "He come in," it would send you a lead, and it's an AI-generated avatar that would say. So I kind of look back at the stuff that we did back then, and it was really cutting edge. And that's again what led to what we were doing and what led to us myself winning that award. We won a few awards back then. And then I moved to Australia the following year in 2012.
Yeah, right.
And life took a little bit of a change.
Yeah, interesting. Cool.
So you naturally have gone into our next question. You made that move. What made you see an opportunity in WA that others may have potentially missed?
Define opportunity. hopefully my mother-in-law doesn't watch this, but home is where the mother-in-law lives, so that's ultimately why we came and moved to Western Australia. I'll never forget having come from this situation in Best Buy when I had some call it a muggles job or a proper job, and it was really entrepreneurial. We would try different things. If it failed, we would bin it. Literally, you'd get a project going, no, we've changed it. The world has changed. Retail moves so fast. Coming to WA, where I remember going to get a proper job, and I remember a recruitment agent saying to me, he says, Dave, he says, I said to them, what do you do that's digital? And he literally, he said, Dave, digital, he said, you got the wrong state. We dig shit out of the ground, were his exact words. And I remember going home to my wife that night and going, I think we could end up moving. Like, I know you want to be here where your mum is and that, and where your family is, but we might end up having to move and I can't get a job. Luckily, I got a job at that point working for one of the utilities in WA, again, looking at customer experience and customer systems. And it's at that point through that job where, just to kind of brush off some of the greenness, that I met my business partner of my first business. So during that period we met, and we essentially together we built the My Account features of the electricity retailer over there. So it was a great experience, again, very customer focused, understanding how WA does things and being able to apply everything that we'd learned from sort of the UK bits across in that sector.
It sounds like customer service it's part of your DNA.
Ultimately businesses exist because of their customers. So unless you're willing to kind of get down and really truly understand what it is that your customers want, or what is the problem that you're solving for your customer, and are they and then prepared to pay money for it, because there are some problems in this world that we see it in the startup ecosystem where people, they have spent their life savings and they have spent many rotations around the sun investing their time in a project that unfortunately may not be a problem that's worth solving.
And just not long after your arrival in Perth, you joined Morning Startup, is that right? Or started Morning Startup?
So Morning Startup, for those who have never heard of it before, it's a meetup group. It's as simple as it's a meetup group where it was founded because people who were creating a startup wanted to go somewhere and talk about, how have you overcome this problem? What are the issues you're experiencing? And it literally was just more serendipitous than anything, that when I moved to WA in 2012, I was looking for something like a yearning to just apply something that's digital and to look at what's going on in the ecosystem, whereas like the entrepreneurial approach. And for me is where I found the Scott and Isaac, who were forming Morning Startup at that point. And I was like, this is exactly my outlook for kind of getting my fix on it. So Morning Startup is a meetup group. We've got probably 7,500 members, I think, now. And I joined at the same time as it had started. Isaac then moved to Melbourne to follow his startup, which is Tidy HQ. Scott had gone to the US to pursue his startup over there. And so I still had my normal job, so I just looked after Morning Startup for a number of years and have been ever since. But the whole point of Morning Startup is it meets every second Wednesday at Space Cube, or us oldies call it Space Cube, at Riff over in WA. And it's designed to bring like-minded people into the same room, early stage, looking at trying to solve a problem in their respective industries. And so we're bringing people together through Morning Startup every second Wednesday at 7:30. We'll have a presenter who will essentially share some of their experiences, how they failed, how they succeeded. We'll have pitch practice if required. We'll even give you some breakfast and some food and some coffees. But there's no legal entity behind it. It is literally just a group of like-minded founders coming together just for the greater good of WA to kind of make it happen. And I think it was recognised in one of the Startup Master reports a few years back as one of Australia's most influential group. So, like I say, we've got 7,500 members on it now, and
Oh wow!
haven't, every single fortnight. Tomorrow being the next one, unfortunately, I won't be there because I'm over here in Eastern States. But every 2 weeks, meeting to have a presenter, and there's lots of IP in that. So, and we record it. So we were lucky enough to get sponsorship from the WA government, really trying to help. Who paid for essentially, a company called Perth Video to come in every 2 weeks, and they record the session, and that's then put up for other people to then consume. And we've had some great people present. We've had VCs, we've had founders, we've had lots of different people present, and that's always then recorded and it's put up. So if you go to morningstartup.com, I think you'll go to the meetup page, but on there somewhere is a link that will take you to all of the previous sessions that have been recorded.
And that was, you joined that 13 odd years ago.
Oh, so over a decade now. Yeah.
Were there many of those meetups of that nature in Perth back then?
So the reason purely the reason it existed was just because there was nothing around where founders can get together. And I mean, we talk about praising each other, but I think the main purpose of Morning Startup was just to talk about how life as a founder is pretty difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's through that it was like, how do we come up? I've got this problem. How do I solve it? Or how do I validate this customer issue? Or understand where can I find more customers? And so even now, as you go through, and this is my second company now that I've founded. Even now, when we go there 2 weeks, Scott and I will talk about the issues that we're going through, and like, how have you solved this? Or well, actually, I recommend doing this or doing that. And it's more the nitty gritty failure stuff that I think most people are more interested in. Like, we can all sit there and pat each other on the back and go, yeah, you're doing amazing. And from the outside, it looks people can look and go, oh yeah, you're doing great, but I think it's often it's the story that's not told that's the most interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking back, was this community preparing you for something bigger?
Look, I'd had a couple of businesses in the UK as well, and again, I'd learned some nasty lessons. Let's put it this way: like the GFC took one of them. That was a good story about how something that you cannot control can affect your business. So in that instance, ironically, I was importing a product from Australia into the UK market, and the GFC took this product from what I was retailing it at, and literally tripled it overnight because of the currency exchange rate. And again, it's an important lesson to factor into any business model, these external factors. But I think that absolutely Morning Startup, along with that point in time, that point in time was quite an exciting time, I think, in the ecosystem, because startups was a buzzword back in sort of 2012, 2013. We had Canva was starting to make its name. We'll always tell you that Canva was a WA company, and then it moved across over east. But there was a lot of buzz in the air at that point. There were definitely a few. We're starting to see the first accelerator programs or incubators. Like, I remember Founders Institute was one. Then we had a few local WA ones, like Focus Upstart was another one, and you're starting to see a lot of hype around this whole tech sector coming into WA, which has been always predominantly mining based, and so it's always been a thing about WA to diversify its economy, and so startups was geared as being that. So there was a lot of buzz around it. So to answer your question, absolutely, it's through osmosis. All of that there's kind of lessons learned has come in, and being able to apply it.
Yeah. So you're tackling what you call the global problem of healthcare at home. From your tech system background and your experience with Morning Startup, what made you see broken processes in aged care that needed fixing?
I think you have to take a step back. So, like, I never intended to get into aged care. So I think what happened was, I had a job at a utility, wanted that little bit more. Was about time I thought, right, now was the right time. I had met my former business partner, and at that point we were fixing a problem, and that, like I said, in geospatial mapping, enterprise geospatial mapping. And how do I combine a enterprise customer management system with knowing where all my assets are and if there was like a power outage, which customers do as effect. When we started that business, I think this comes back to the lesson, and this is an interesting one around often investors will back the founders, I think, in what they're doing. Your idea may not be as rock solid at that point in time, but back in sort of 2016, 2017, I kind of made the decision that I needed to find the next thing what it is. We were kind of working out what that was. My former business partner and I, we thought there was this solution in this enterprise geospatial mapping solution. But we definitely hadn't nutted out the proposition, we hadn't nutted out where the customers were. And at that point we applied for, back then it was Muridi, so it was the Muridi accelerator, and it was the first WA based one. So WA we called it +8, but it was essentially, it was backed by like Telstra's Muridi the piece back in sort of 2017. And we didn't get in. We went through the boot camp and we didn't get in. But it was only through pure sort of, I guess, luck that one of the other companies didn't want to agree to the terms and conditions. And they said, hey, look, you're like our backup, do you want to come in? And of course we're going, hell yeah, this is like kind of what we need. And we knew at that point that we were very much half-baked. Yeah. We knew we had a long way to go and that they were absolutely taking a risk on us.
Right. And so being plan B wasn't, a blow to the ego or anything, you were still just working it out?
No, like we recognised that. Like we knew that we still had a long way to go. Yeah, there's no ego in it. It was like we kind of we knew that they were taking a risk, and I think that probably also helped focus us a little bit on what we were doing. But even through that whole piece, it's around, the one thing around drumming us in is like, where's your customer? Validate your customer idea. And so I think that's kind of just that kind of repetition of going through that. And I remember even after we left, we were very much like a weather vane, like trying to find, and the way I say it is we were a solution looking for a problem. Right? So we knew there was this issue, and it kind of like just through dumb luck it maybe worked because we were able to land a very big US client who said, we've got a traveling salesman issue around how do I know where all my clients are, how do I put the right salespeople in the right locations. Again, that got us a client and we were able to build from that. But as you went through it, and I think this is where you kind of like, as founders, you've got to have that grit. You've got to be prepared to kind of like, to a point, because there's a point where if the world is telling you no, your product is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, then you do need to look at it. But I think what we did is we spent a good sort of 18 months kind of just getting to the bottom of it and going, right, where is it? What is it? Who is willing to pay for this? And I think through that process, we collectively learned a lot of lessons. But that when we did that, we needed to pay ourselves a wage. So I'd made the decision after we'd done the Muridi or +8 accelerator that you need to focus on it. I'd already managed to engineer myself to be part-time. But after that, I was like, I'm in this, and if it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, then nothing ventured, nothing gained. So it's only then, and again, that's why I will say to founders haven't made that jump. Like you really need to kind of put it on the line to go, by some way, engineer yourself a soft landing if you can. Like I was able to go part-time and do it, and I know other founders have done everything from these days Uber and whatnot. But I went full-time, but when we went full-time, we were essentially also finding other solutions to pay the money, and it was through that we were able to bootstrap, and we ended up, long story short, we created a separate company which essentially became like an IT services business but specialised in mapping. And it was through this piece, and I won't go too much into it, but essentially that business effectively took off, and we won one federal government contract that we effectively, we went in for one very small piece of that contract, but ultimately ended up walking away with a multi-million-dollar contract from that. And so as two founders, one was working on this and walking away with a multi-dollar contract, we're thinking, our shit smells better than most people's. And we're like, there's a certain level, you try not to drink too much of the Kool-Aid, because we've got to focus on now growing it. But what that ultimately led to is it led to my business partner building this product and working in that, and it saw me working in a sector I'd never been in, which was the aged care and the disability sector. And through what we did with that particular project, with that government, that was supposed to only be a 2-year contract. But when COVID hit, essentially the government was able to make lots of quick decisions based on the technology platform we'd put in place for them. And they were then able to make policy decisions that affected, hundreds of thousands of NDIS participants, but also providers, because they were able to get live information from the field. But what it did do is a lot of providers then in that sector, both aged care and NDIS, was like, hey, you're the company that built this and helped the government do that. We're really struggling to basically move from the old NDIS block funded system across to the new NDIS system. Sorry, to the old disability block system to the NDIS. Same for aged care. Can you come and can help us transform? So what happened was, it saw me take essentially my side of the business, for want of a better word. We'd grown it to some size now. There were probably I think 13 of us in that area of the business, and there were probably 4 or 5 on the other side still building the product. But we basically started to consult, and we learned very quickly in that sector where the problems were. And we would go into a provider and we'd say, look, if you want us to work with you, you've got to give us unrestricted access to everything, your books, your staff, your execs. And a lot of them did because they wanted to transform. And we learned very quickly where providers were worried about going broke, but in fact we were looking at why have you got this policy or why have you got that. And in one instance, we found one provider where they'd literally left $3 million on the table because they'd not told their staff to tick this particular button within their current CRM, which was not billing for travel. And we're like, do you know this? No. It's too late to go and backdate this now, but essentially you fix this problem. So long story short is that we learned how to do it. But one of the things that fascinated me about this whole journey was then we ended up putting this slide into every single wrap up that we'd do back to the execs. And this one slide was a customer avatar with different rings around it. And we said, look, we've gone into your business and we've spoken to everybody in your business, your customers, everyone. But no one in your business ever talks about the customer experience. You're too you're worried about the outside, all the other stuff. So when COVID hit, we were put on, we were furloughed, but we still had all our retainers for the government. So we're like, what do we do? So I kind of made the decision at that point. I said to my business partner, I said, I think there's a bigger problem here to be solved.
Yeah.
I think this is bigger than what we were building before. Do you want to go on this journey? And he was like, no, I'm very much wedded to this here. That. So I had to make the decision to effectively split and go through that process. And effectively, we swapped all our shares, and I created PlanCare, which started in sort of January 2021.
Wow.
What a story.
Wow.
That's a story of grit. Timing,
There's a mix in it. I think when you look at that business, and that business is doing very well. It's got lots of good federal clients, and when I see them put new releases up on LinkedIn, I'm so proud, because I'm so proud of what my former business partner has built and what he's doing, and he's carried on that journey. But for me, I always said I wanted to build a very big business that affects a lot of people's lives. It's kind of like, it sounds very cliche, but as founders, you want to build something that's bigger than yourself. And so I kind of go, I could do this or I could do this. And so I ummed and I ahed about it for months and months and months, about going, the whole FOMO, fear of missing out, which is if I made this choice to split, and I literally go, look, I'm going to go and start this new thing, and I'm just going to hand everything back because that's kind of what we required. Do you do it? And I think I spoke to a lot of my mentors at the time, looking at the people I confided in. They all came back, was like, if you don't do it, you'll always be asking yourself, what if?
Yeah.
What if I didn't make that jump? And you've also got to back yourself. So you've got to back yourself as a founder, and you've got to have true faith in what you're doing. And there will be a number of years, and there was for me, when I always look back and I'd see the updates on LinkedIn while we were still, I was earning nothing. And having to bootstrap this again from the start to build it up to what it is. and seeing them do the updates, and you're like, oh my God, have I made the right decision? You know, is he about to get bought by, you know, X big company or whatever? And I'm like, oh my God, I could have been done by now. But you always came back to, look, stay the course and stay true. And I think from what we've built now and seeing that this bigger problem with what we're solving in PlanCare, again, I still believe that we've made the right decision. So when we created PlanCare, the reason we created it was because all of us are getting older, right? No one's getting any younger. The aging population is growing, and the one thing that we saw was that the way that we are solving this problem, you know, in older adult health, and how people want to live longer in their own homes rather than going into residential care. Like, it's very much always been done by a traditional, what we class as a traditional provider model. And so what that means is that you would go to a traditional provider, they would essentially take you on as a client. They would then, you don't get to choose who the staff member is, so you may not have that connection with that staff member that they send out to your home. They also kind of almost dictate the time frames that you get, and then also you have to pay the price that they would dictate to you. And so we kept coming back to the thought process was, and the analogy I always give it to is very much the travel industry. It's like the old days of you go to a travel agent, or you can now, and then Expedia and all these other companies came along, and now you can do it all yourself. So I was looking at, well, we want to keep people living longer at home because we know that it's better for them than going into potentially resi care. Obviously, there is a point that their needs may be too much that it can't be serviced. They can't be serviced from home. But let's try and keep them in the home where they know the surroundings they're comfortable with for as long as possible. So how can we use technology mixed with human to give that experience? And then also, how can we build a platform that ultimately gives people the choice and control to choose how they get their supports, when they get the supports, how much they pay for the supports. So that's where we're one of about 5 providers in the sector here in Australia that specialise in a service called self-management. And so that's where we've built this platform that allows them to self-manage their home care support. So from a legislative point of view, we are no different to any other aged care provider. We're audited by the government. You know, we have to jump through a lot of legislation, so it's a highly regulated industry, which kind of delayed our. But we knew this when we went into it, so we knew when I made that split, we knew there was a strategy to get these registrations and to go through that process. But
was that a daunting thing? Or like, I guess I'm just curious, like, not having operated in that industry to that point, were you shocked or surprised by anything that you encountered along the way?
No, I'd absolutely expect this industry to be highly regulated to the level it is, and I think we knew that anyway because of the way we'd consulted to previous providers. When we were bootstrapping. I think the issue was that I made the decision to, again, comes back to FOMO, is that you talk about putting the cards back on the table, which is I'd made that decision to split before we'd even got any registration. So had they denied that registration, I've handed everything in, and I'm not back at square one. I'm beyond. But even before square one, I'm at 0 again. So there was always this risk of when you go through that process of doing it. But thankfully, as we've gone through, it's like they're always calculated risks when you go through the process, and we were awarded our approved provider status, and so then, and as a result, we've been very popular. So this comes back to customer validation. Like, we wouldn't exist if our customers didn't want services that we want, that we deliver. So it comes back to, as a founder, is that we've got our biggest mantra is our big mission is to essentially serve 1 million people, or to keep 1 million people in the comfort of their own home. So we've aimed big, and we're using technology now to automate a lot of those processes, having learned from when we consulted to other traditional providers as to where all the pain points were. So we've taken this technology first approach to healthcare in older adults, so that we're not going to be constrained by maybe some of the middle office or back office processes that they have.
So I guess using technology, it's probably another reason why your customers might love your services would potentially be the fees compared to industry standards. So from our research, we see that you charge 13% instead of industry 23%. That's a big difference.
It's 27 actually. I think it's
okay.
higher than that actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the sector, a customer, if they get government funding, a customer, a participant in aged care, if they get a home care package as it's currently called, it will all change on the 1st of November to a support at home package. And again, that's a huge industry-wide change that we're all going through. But if you take the current program, you could pay up to 35%.
Wow.
Of every dollar you get from the government, and so we charge 13%. And the reason we're able to do it so low is just because we've adopted technology from day one,
Right.
and it's around applying it from a ground up view to automate some of those. So again, ultimately, our goal is to make it so that our care managers, as we call them, co-care partners, can spend more time talking to clients rather than doing administrative tasks. Because a lot of that is done from the back end side of things.
I would love to know, how does AI play a role in this?
So we actually won an award for AI back in late 2023.
Okay.
So we were awarded by the AFR. We were awarded one of Australia's most innovative healthcare companies.
Wow.
And that's because of the work that we did with AI.
Yeah.
And so again, this comes back to, as a founder, you've got to be slightly cheeky, and you've got to you've got to push the boundaries politely, in some respects. And so back then, back in sort of, I think it was late 2022, the world had just been introduced to OpenAI and ChatGPT, and it was game changing. And I read an article where they talked about platforms, and they talked about their enterprise version of it, and so I was like, we need to get on this. How do we do this? How do we get part of it? And so again, another long story short is I saw that this would be a game-changing technology for everybody, every industry. And it was like, how do we apply it here? And so for us, it was like we managed to get ourselves access to an early access to platforms to sort of check what it is. And platforms is slightly different to the normal ChatGPT. They do it. They've changed it. They keep changing it. But essentially, it's an ability for you to connect your APIs into some of the OpenAI services. So back then, it was very limited on what you can and can't do. But we essentially, back then, this is sort of, I think it was like early 2023, mid 2023. We effectively connected a little subset or a test environment to go. Question we wanted to know was, could AI help us and identify potential issues or risks with our clients? And so the context was, as a human, when we look at, so we get, when we deliver services, we deliver it through a brokerage model. So we have like about 5,500, 6,000 micro providers or workers who work for us. It's part of that requirement. We need to collect shift notes or case notes. Very much like when you go to the doctor's going to sit there and going to write up your notes. It's like the welfare of the client.
Yeah.
One of the requirements, and this is legislative, is that we need to have those back. But when a care manager or a clinician or one of our nurses is looking through those notes, as much as you try and read an overall context of notes of 3 days, it's going to be difficult because if you've read even a paragraph that's sort of 2 paragraphs long on the welfare of a client, you try and put that into context to the day, 3 days before that, let alone the week before that, let alone the week before that, then you're going to struggle to understand what's happening. So in this particular instance, we took some of these notes to say, look, can we see any context? Could we see any trends, anything like that? And I think just at that moment, and I always remember it was like this DOS type screen. It was like a terminal screen, and it just came back with a very much a. We gave it to particular clients in this instance. Is there any? Does any of these clients show any cause for concern? Now we'd kind of trained it a little bit in the background to go, these are the areas you need to look at. But effectively at that point, that was all we'd given it. So we want to know really what can it tell us. I think we sat there and it was like watching this cursor come back and flashing, and it came back and went, yep, this client here is showing the potential signs of cognitive decline. We were like, okay, why? And he went back and he went through all the shift notes and he went, here, this person had lost his keys, this one remote, this one had put the remote in the fridge, little signs, little telltale signs that as a human we'd never have picked it up. And I remember there was just silence between the three of us. We were sat at the table watching it. We just looked at each other and we went, at that point we kind of looked at him and we went, this is huge, this is massive. And so we then did it again, and one discovered what it thought was possibly could be defined as elder abuse, where a family member was constantly asking for funds and money, and they'd also noticed a few things missing. And so again, it's those things are, it's like, what do we do in those scenarios? And some then we created some, we said, right, let's go a little bit further, let's then use this tool to create other particular, like, just see if we can train it to be better. And ultimately that's led to, we've now as a company, we've got a full AI approach to it. But again, we're in a highly regulated industry, and I'm not sure the government is fully on board with some of the stuff, and I think they're not sure how they can manage it. So I think we're kind of at that point where we're saying we take a very transparent approach when we're dealing with like the Aged Care Commission and Services Australia in what we do, because we want to educate them on like the power of what we can do and what's possible. So we've very much taken we've taken a agentic approach to it. We have 4 agents that sit within the business. You can meet to them via our website. So we have Smiley, which is essentially our concierge. It's like it's been trained to be very happy. It doesn't really. You can go onto the website and meet a version of it. It can very much. You can ask it any question. It's very much like it's very similar to what the ChatGPT interface is. We even had to build it so that it spills out the letters, so it feels that same rather than going bang. Here's a load of words. So again, come back to the user experience.
Absolutely,
It kind of makes it look like it's talking to you. And so Smiley has very much been based around almost being that personal assistant for a client. Can I buy this? Because I think a lot of the grey areas, especially in our areas, like, can I buy this? Can I not buy this? Can I buy a $2,000 stick vacuum? Well, not really, because it doesn't under the terms. It doesn't show value for money. Is there a cheaper alternative that would do it? So I think you can go and meet Smiley on our website and you can ask it any questions. But then when you connect Smiley back into your own, when we're doing the test attack, when you connect it to the customer data, that's when it becomes super powerful. We then had another agent called Churchill, which is essentially what Churchill does is internal only. So Churchill is like very much a yes or a no agent. It's connected in with the client records, and again, Churchill's built out of need, because when we in the industry that we're in, there's lots of grey areas, and so we would literally go. The 3 of us could sit here together and go, "Can I buy this can of Coke Zero onto my home care package?" And we could all make a separate argument as to why you could and why you couldn't, And so that's what we found internally, was that we found a lot of time was being wasted by care managers, our co-care partners, because they would literally turn inwards to themselves. They'd have this half-hour debate as to how they would pitch it. And then we'd make the right decision by the government, what we thought would be the right decision by the customer as well. And then we'd get audited, because the government in aged care, the systems unfortunately are not as advanced as you like. So the way the government gets the information they want is you unfortunately get regular audits. They go, please can you show us how you spent a customer's package on X, Y, and Z. And so in this instance, we kind of thought we'd made the right decision, because which was the best value for taxpayers' money. And they were like, well, no, that doesn't sit with us, because you could have made this. And we were like, even you're making a different answer to the 3 of us, and we can show you our decision-making process. So we created Churchill to essentially reduce that time down and literally look at the legislation. So it's a bit like we're seeing AI in case law now, where it's like looking at the case law to go, what was the decision that was made on that point? And
so can you use Churchill as an audit trail as
100%,
well?
yes. So Churchill basically is...
So cool.
Yeah,
so cool. We could have a whole other episode on this.
So Churchill's cool, because I love the fact that the co-care partners, they like to email me and tell me that Churchill's broken. And they go, well, Churchill gave me this answer. And so they sent me a screenshot. And like one of them I always remember was, and this is where you kind of as you go through, you have to make you adapt it. But there's this one instance, they sent me a screenshot saying, can I buy incontinence? And so Churchill literally did like it said and was like, well, no, you can't buy incontinence. You can buy incontinence products, you can buy pads, you can buy these things, but strictly by the letter of the law, unless you went out for one night and you went to some, you had some spicy dish or something like that, or whatever it is the night before, you can't strictly buy incontinence. So, but it's through that journey and that lesson that we've kind of, you're honing it in, and then it's coming back with, it's one thing saying no for a product, but if there's an alternative, how can you come out again, bringing it back to the customer journey? How can we tell it and go, look, customer wants to purchase this. It may not be fundable under, for example, this program, but the government has a lot of different programs that can be funded in. So it's around getting to the information quicker, faster, and more accurately, so that the co-care partners have got the decisions to make on their own. But we got to. You can meet. The last one we've been to was Florence. You can see Florence on our website.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're definitely taking an AI approach to it, and I think AI at the moment is a bit of a buzzword. Like obviously I'm mentoring this afternoon at one of the sessions, and every other startup's got AI in it. It's AI this, AI that. You've been along the traps long enough. Whilst this is absolutely a defining moment in technology. I think I heard somewhere this is like the days of when the internet was born, and for those of us old enough and been around, this is when you were able to buy 14.4 dial-up in the terms of AI. So that's kind of where you look at where internet came. We had the .com bubble, through that process, we're at the 14.4 dial-up phase of that .com bubble. Absolutely a thing, but I think it's part of that thing. So everybody's going to be pitching. So I'm an AI for this. I'm an AI HR system. I am an AI doing this. I think AI is very much, it's an orchestration layer above the data that you sit below. And it's one thing saying you've got AI, but if you haven't got the data set that's below it, then that's where you're going to struggle, I think, as a provider.
So professionally, I'm a digital technology consultant. Even this morning, mentoring executives on AI, literally what you're talking about now. And what I always say is it's really about the business need. AI is nice, but do you have a business need? And I think what's really exciting about what you guys have done is that there was a clear business need, and it's providing efficiencies and even that audit trail piece, especially because I've dabbled in the health space a little bit and just understand how challenging it is from a regulatory perspective, data security perspective, ethics perspective. That's really cool. Really like that.
I mean, if you come out of Churchill, why did we create it? Because I guess if I look at the way that when they audited us, they go, look, the fact that you approved this item that shouldn't be on the proof because you thought you were making the right decision. Again, the classic is a common thing is washing machines, right? It's classed as a white good, but you cannot fund that into the home care package, but you can fund it if the client has incontinence. And in this particular instance, we made the choice to fund it because the fact that the customer had fallen over and had a hip replacement 3 times, and we went, strictly speaking, it's better to have her have this washer dryer than to pay for a support worker to go out, which would be 10x the cost. So we kind of made the decision, but in the eyes of them, they was like, you made the wrong decision. They also then came back with, it said, well, because you can show us your decision-making process, then we're not going to kind of pull you across the coals here. Because we were able to go, this is the process that we went through, these are the questions that we've asked. You can literally see the audit trail from Churchill to go, this is the question 1, you can see that they've challenged it, you've asked it in a different way, it's X, Y, and Z. And then we've applied the human layer of, right, what does our nurse think about this? And ultimately the nurse made a decision because we don't want this customer in hospital with a broken hip, because it's the right thing to be the customer. And if the government says you've got to pay back that $2,000, fair enough. At least I can sleep well at night knowing we made the right decision on behalf of the customer.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll definitely be using that as a use case.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually had a conversation with CEO of an ASX listed company, and he's giving me some mentoring advice. And my thought process previously was, it doesn't matter where the data sits, because you can create like the orchestration layer that pulls information. And he said the exact same point that you made just then. Like it is the data is your moat.
It's your moat. Yeah. So you talk about a startup. Any companies that are created, you often are, what's your moat? So, you know, if I look at ourselves, our moat is we're in a very highly regulated industry. That's a very tough one to climb. And it's one, getting it, two is keeping it.
Yeah.
You know, two, it then comes back to the data. So one of the things that, you know, I didn't mention as part of this is that when we originally built PlanCare is we built a CRM that we actually gave away for free. So we have a CRM called CareTasker.
Okay.
It's got probably about 3,500, 4,000 what we class as micro providers who have used it. So think of it as like HubSpot for aged care and NDIS.
Yeah.
And we never ever monetized it, right? So we basically we were giving it away for free because we planned to one day monetize it, but we've never got around to it. But what it did is it created this ecosystem of data that we can see trends and we can see stuff again that's highly important to us. Whilst we you know, wouldn't always use the data for the right reasons, but again, it was again a moat for us to go, right, we can see where customers want these features, we can see this is what's happening. Again, it just creates more buy-in. And again, the fact that AI has come along, great, thumbs up, but AI will only ever be as good as the data that you're asking it to do.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're in. And I think you're seeing it now in this space where, you know, there's 100 startups that all received $100 million each, and then Google comes along and they create that, like, I think was it Nano Banana the other week? They created Nano Banana, and all of a sudden these 100 startups that all got 100 million each in funding, they've pretty much gone bust, or they're out of business.
This is, you know, this is the reason why we started this podcast, to talk about this stuff. I called Tristan earlier today just to tell him that Claude mobile app, they just released their feature in the last 24 hours that it will allow the Claude mobile app to access your calendar, your messages.
Well, that's Fixer AI gone out the window.
Your WhatsApp, all of your messaging tools, all of your calendar tools, all of your email tools is now can be controlled by Claude. And you can get it to do research, you can get it to do whatever you want in the actual app, and then you can push it out into all the connected services. It's incredible.
Just, we're moving to we are fast moving to the personal assistant of AI. So, and you think, like, I trialed one myself, which I think it's called Fixer AI or something like that, which you integrate into your mailbox and it kind of does this stuff, and I kind of got the point. It was awesome how it did it. It would read my email, it would summarize my email, and then categorize my email. But it was almost like it was too much. But again, you look at what you've just said there, where they're doing it, and OpenAI is on a similar, and we'll probably see Grok do something similar. Sure. Those companies, their moat has disappeared because they don't have the data. They literally just they've integrated it into your piece. They might survive a few rounds, but I think, you know, if you're lucky enough to get bought, fair enough. But I think 9 times out of 10, and again, history repeats itself. We've seen this with other technologies. We saw it with crypto. We've seen it with Web 2.0, whatever it is. This will always come around, and you think, oh, I'm going to solve a problem in this area, and it's great. But it's like, how defendable is your actual product? And I think somebody once said to me, a mentor said to me, like, niche is where you start, it's not where you finish. And I've always kind of kept that in my head to go, don't try and boil the ocean when you're creating a startup, because when you create something so generic like the likes we've talked about, it's easy for other people to come in, bigger players to essentially come in and take your market share straight away, and they'll just, like Microsoft does it. Microsoft's renowned for doing it.
Absolutely.
You know, they'll come in and they'll just, you know, they did it with Teams. You look at Slack. Slack was there, and you know, everyone was talking Slack, and all of a sudden the enterprise came along and they threw it out there, and Teams is now the kind of one to go to.
Just on that, going off piste a little bit here, but getting back to what you said earlier around your journey, it definitely wasn't a linear point A to point B. Like you've sort of gone
100%,
on a you know, followed off on tangents, but clearly been open to opportunity. Has that something that you've sort of been conscious of throughout your journey, as in rolling with the punches, being curious, not being afraid of experimenting or taking that side route and just seeing what happens?
100. I think as a founder, you've got to be prepared to fail. Like, I think it's so you've got to be inquisitive enough to kind of want to go down a few rabbit holes and to explore it. Like we certainly did in the first business. We went down we created our own warren. It was so deep at some point. It's like I use the term weather vane because we were literally going around, let's try and fix this problem, let's try and fix that problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, you've got to be prepared to kind of go down, explore. It goes, look, what's in this area? Okay, it's not going to be a good fit. Let's move on. But just through that grit and wanting to go and look and explore, which is in most founders, it's inherent. It's kind of part of your DNA. I think you tend to see them. Those that is part of it, they'll always do well. And it's also being prepared to essentially, like we were in the first business, to go, it's not a fit, let's just put it down, rather than kind of go, I'm going to, you've only got so many rotations around this sun, how many am I going to waste pursuing something that's never going to drive value, not only for you but for your clients. So I think, you've got to be prepared to do it. And I think we don't talk enough over here. Like if you've ever been to Silicon Valley, they'll talk about the founders that have failed 15 times before they've done something well. But I think over here, there is this possibly a stigma around it, and I think it's almost unhealthy. I think
around failure.
Around failure, 100%. I think it's like if we had a conversation, you told me you failed 3 times, I'm not going to look at you and go, you're a moron. I'm going to go, tell me more, because I kind of want to learn from you. Like you literally know my oracle, and I want to learn from you and go, what did you learn from it? Because you look at some of these stories, and like for example, Travis from Uber, he got ousted from that company. Yes, it was a very successful business, but he got ousted, and now he's coming back for revenge. And you kind of go, well, what is he going to do from that piece and learn? I often think those who have failed often come back with better stories, and they've learned effectively 99 ways of how not to do it. So that the 100th time is the one that's going to do well. And I know it sounds a real cliche, and I know that I'm probably going to get some stick for it, but I think it's real true. Is that if you look at companies that do well, whether you love or hate the likes of like Elon Musk, you can see how he literally embraces failure. Like, let's stick this rocket up, let's see what breaks. Like literally, we've just sent 2 rockets up, however many hundreds of millions of dollars it's cost. But we're literally going to plant this one in the sea because we're going to learn from the data and we're going to see what it is. And that lesson is one that I think a lot of founders need to take on board, to look at their inwards and look at their own problem they're trying to solve, to sort of say, well, is it actually a problem that's to be solved? How am I going to take the failures of this customer that I don't want to necessarily sign up, but what is it they would sign up for? And just take it from that. And I think that's kind of the lessons I learned as going on this journey, which is don't be afraid to kind of ask for that sale, or just ask those difficult questions. I think it's often as well from our founders, and I'm definitely party to it, because there's a kind of semi-famous story over in WA about me crying my eyes as I walked down the high street in Sun Valley in California. But I'd literally, I won't mention any names, but I'd arranged to meet up with a very well-known entrepreneur over there for the group. So we all went over there as part of the +8 Muridi excursion. I go across there for a couple of 3 weeks to kind of learn how the Valley does it, how Silicon Valley does it. And so I thought, that'd be cool, let's go and arrange this meeting with this well-known person, and went in there. And I'd arranged it, but I hadn't, at this point, again, we were early in our story, we hadn't learned what we were doing, we were pivoting all over the place. When I pitched it, I babbled, I kind of spilled it out. This guy kind of saw this as a weakness. He essentially took almost advantage and almost, I wouldn't say bullying, but kind of like made me like the piece. And I remember walking afterwards, putting a brave face as I walked out of it, but I walked around the Valley, phoned my wife and went, that's it, I'm done with this startup shit. I'm going to go get my proper job back. I'm just going to be boring, do this. And I think it's just that failure of going, do you know what? No, I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to go take, what did I learn from that? What was the world trying to tell me? And just go through that process and just relearn and rebuild yourself. And I think often the reason I think I took it so badly was when he criticized it, I felt like he was criticizing me, my startup. And I think that's, as founders, you've created this company that's your baby, but often it's like, if someone says to your baby stinks and it's ugly, you're taking that as a personal effect on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're like, and even now, when we're in a scale-up phase, if we get a criticism of a business, I take it personally. I'm like, how can I, what can we have done better? Like, how can we do it? So I really think it's like you have to learn to somewhat disconnect yourself and look at what you're doing in a really objective way.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult. Like it's like emotionally, you're emotionally tied to it because you want it. You're so invested in your startup, but you have to just take that step back and take an outside view to it.
Yeah. You completely echoed what Caroline said in the last podcast as well. I think she used the exact same term. Like when someone says your baby's ugly. Yeah, your startup.
100%.
So you've had an amazing journey, and you're now supporting the morning startup in WA. How do you impart the lessons that you've learned, and to the people that you're mentoring and on your trip here as well?
So I think as all founders, we have a duty. So I think in WA, I think it's probably worth explaining that we kind of feel like we're hard done by versus the rest of Australia. So there is definitely this. I won't say hard done by, but I think there's definitely this thing where I know it certainly drives myself that we need to prove that we can build really big companies in WA, and because it is a known fact that we do lack access to funding, to investment. That's why we have Purpose Ventures were created, and then some of the others, and that's why the WA government is finally really backing the startup ecosystem. So I think there's this kind of mentality that we have to do it, but I also think as founders, you have to give back. Like it's a barter system, right? So, and part of me is it's around I kind of believe in karma, and in the sense is like if you pay it forwards, it's going to come to you. And again, not only do you pay it forwards, but it opens doors for you. I also think as well, and like I've always started any mentoring session I will give, and it's no different to ones where I've pitched and someone's gone, I think your idea is shit, I don't want to do it. But it comes back to the fact that whenever I start anything with anybody now, I go, look, what we're going to talk about in the next mentor session or in the next presentation, whatever, you're going to tell me information based on, I've never known your startup, you're literally, I'm going to hear it for the first time. I'm going to give you feedback based on the information that you're telling me here and now. It's advice, it's only based on what you've told me, and advice and opinions are like arseholes, everyone's got one. And it's up to you to choose which bits you want and which bits you don't want to take from it. Yeah. But essentially it's my view on what you've just told me and how I'm kind of putting you in a bucket. I don't know your industry, I don't know this. Yeah. So I think it's really important that as founders, we share the experience, but also sugarcoat it as well in too much, because building a business is really hard. Like you say, you've had an amazing story, but I can tell you, like there is so much kind of like, there's, it's the, as I said before, it's the story of, oh, look at that overnight success that's had 10 years in the making. You've got to walk a mile in someone's shoes to truly understand the amount of sacrifices that as founders we go through to get us to this point. And again, like walking away from the previous one that's doing well in the business, doing this, not earning a wage for God knows how many years, to finally then go, hey, and celebrating that first day you do get that wage check, and paying people in your business more money than you'll ever earn for the foreseeable future, and just getting comfortable with that. So I think it's like as founders, it's about giving these lessons back to people so that you can fast track whatever decision you've gone through.
Dave, I think you're about to dive into the +8 session, so we probably should almost wrap it up.
We've got a little bit of time.
Got a little bit.
Wrap it up, you're more than welcome.
Maybe one or two more questions then, but just on that point of generosity, like you're being generous with your time now. You're over here in Sydney, about to talk to some other aspiring entrepreneurs, and I guess I'm just personally curious, and we asked Caroline this same question, but just wanting to get your take on how to balance it all. How do you balance that the morning startup activity that you do, mentoring other founders, business, family, obviously, trying to live a life? Any secrets?
Let my wife answer that. It's like, you need to get the balance. I think that's a tough question to answer, but I think it comes back down to just putting more in than you want to take out as a founder. I don't know what it is, but I think it's like, again, morning startup. And the worst thing with morning startup back in WA was it's only recently that I've moved closer to the city, so I'm like only 15 minutes away. Before that, I lived in a place called Mandurah, which was a good hour and a half's drive. So I would have to get into the city at 6:30 in the morning. So I'd be up at sort of 4:30, 4:45
Wow.
to get up so I could put the chairs out, get everything sorted, so that people can sit there and enjoy whatever speaker that we're giving them. I think it comes back to the fact that you've got to. You don't have to do what Caroline does or what I do. It's up to you. It's your choice. Many founders make it without giving that kind of sacrifice or putting in. I think it's just something for me that I kind of go, there are times where you look at it and go, oh God, if I was to spend that time elsewhere, would I be further along in my business? I don't know. I think I definitely think there's points where I'm definitely at the point now where the business is scaled to a point, and again, we didn't kind of talk of that, but like we've scaled considerably. Like we're sort of 90 odd employees, and you know we're doing some big things. I think that there is a point now where I'm kind of definitely looking at, you know, how much do I scale back? But in the same breath, I look at it and go, okay, yes, I'm going to spend a couple hours, you know, from 5 till 7 talking to you guys. What else would I be doing? I'd probably be sat in the apartment down the road, just answering some emails. So I know where I'd rather be.
Yeah, nice.
So, from UK Systems Professional of the Year to Perth Ecosystem Builder and Healthcare Entrepreneur, what's the thread that connects it all? What drives you?
I would just say that the ecosystem building, I'm going to say it takes a village to raise a baby. And I think that's very true in WA. I think everybody that's one thing about the WA ecosystem, is that everybody does chip in. I'm just part of a much bigger engine that's part of it. So I'm definitely not going to take that accolade. It's gracious, thank you very much, but it's you know, it's kudos to everybody. It's Scott, it's the people, Brody, who started, you know, Space Youth, who took it, I guess, gambling us. But I think, sorry, I've gone off a tangent, but what was the question?
What is the thread that connects it all? What drives you?
That's a good question. I think it's just creating, I think for me personally, it's just creating something. For me, it's not the money that kind of like motivates me. It's ultimately about, I think this was always why in me, when I started the first business, whilst that like is doing well, it's got, you know, tens of big, large companies. There's loads of lessons learned from that, which is almost for a different podcast on some of the stuff we learned from that whole journey. For me, it was never really about the money. It was about solving a much bigger problem and creating something that's bigger than Dave is. And I think that's kind of, for me, that's what still drives me, is ultimately building something that I can look back and go, I did that. Whether or not it gets amalgamated or whatever that exit strategy looks like in the future, it's just going, we've built something that's bigger than I never intended to, but it's bigger than what I wanted.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, incredible story.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap, Dave. As I think you inferred, we could probably have a whole series on Dave.
No. It would be. Honestly, I think it's more. I really like. I generally sit there and go. I almost feel embarrassed when you sort of see to people and go, "Here, Dave, your startups, your scale up's doing well," and you kind of go, "Yes, we've got this. We've got offices in Perth and in Parramatta, and it's yada yada yada," and they all sound like real trophy kind of like metrics, but it's like, I'd rather sit and talk about how the times, and I know whether I can say it, but the amount of times that you've, like, as founders, you've fucked up, and all the decisions you've made that are like, oh, why the hell did I make that decision? And I think that's kind of like, that's why I think these podcasts are so important, because I listen to the podcasts on other founders, and it's like those bits, the nuggets I get from, like, one I heard, and I'm referencing, it's another podcast which I won't name, but they had a guy on there who, and again I won't name the guy, but essentially his business was rubber wedding rings, right? And he referenced this book called Story Brand, and for me it was like Story Brand was this piece around how do you connect with your customer, and it was just little nuggets like that I took away and I went, how can I take that little bit of information and apply it internally of my business? And so I think that's why these particular like avenues are super important.
And we thank you for sharing your wisdom.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Well, until next time, guys. See you on the debrief.
Thank you.